Welcome to the Atomic Impact Podcast. I am your host, Jason Osborne. And on this podcast, we interview successful business owners for them to share atomic impactful lessons that they've learned along their journey and share them with us as well. As always, this show is sponsored by the LinkedIn Reverse Podcast Method, the new way to close deals that doesn't rely on the old traditional methods that everybody hates. We use this method to book 26 qualified leads and sales calls in 10 days without any ad spend, outreach, or endless social media posting. To find out more, direct message me on LinkedIn, have a chat. That's Jason A. Osborne, and the link to that will be in the show notes below. On today's show, we have our guest, Piers Cross. He is the owner of Compassionate Leaders Global, where he provides one-to-one executive coaching and group coaching as well. So, Piers, it's great to have you on the show. And I want to start off with asking you a question that I ask everybody. And the question is this: if you were able to go back in time to when you very first started your first business, what's the number one piece of advice that you would give yourself?
Hmm. Lovely to meet you. Thank you for inviting me on today, Jason. The best piece of advice would just keep going. It's
Yeah.
very easy when we start out to lose impetus, to lose kind of, I can't be bothered. And that's what I'd advise myself is just keep going, have that vision and just don't give up.
Yeah. What are some key factors that you feel cause people to actually stop?
I think it's the inner critic. To be honest, it's that the inner voice. I mean, my work is a lot with boarding school survivors, so people who've been to boarding school but are now in positions of authority, CEOs, government. And what I found with this particular group, and this is leadership as well, is we often have a very strong inner critic, and that often, it's just beating us up all the time. It's like go, 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 go. And sometimes we need to rest. We need to
Mm,
stop. And I think that's one of the key reasons. It's less the people having a go at us, it's more us having a go at ourselves.
yeah, interesting. When you look at that inner critic, and as you've rightly said, oftentimes it's more of us having a go at ourselves than those around us or outward. What are some key tips you've learned over the years to be able to deal with that inner voice and quiet that inner critic to allow us to actually grow in what we're wanting to achieve?
Thank you. One of the ways is emotion. He's Pete Walker in his book Complex PTSD, he talks about this idea that if we've got a lot of emotion that we won't release, that can manifest as the inner critic. So if we go and do therapy, coaching, do some form of process to grieve again. And once
Mm,
the emotion's gone, that's what happened to me in my 20s. I'd worked in the financial sector in London, had a breakdown, and the inner critic was so virulent. Once I started to cry again, then the inner critic kind of diminished. It was like
mm,
a valve. That's one way. Another way, Darren Donnelly in his work, Mental Game, he talks about this idea of just challenging, talking to yourself. We've got to start parenting ourselves in a really positive way. So it's like, no, you can do this. Rather than listening to, oh, it's just my inner critic telling me how shit I am. No, it's a
mm.
challenge. Like we would
Yeah,
a small child. It's like, no, you're a good person.
yeah, yeah. That's a really interesting topic there that when we're growing our business, we can deal with things that we will fail in. It's inevitable. We'll have small failures, big failures along the way. How do we, and I know you touched on some of this, but I'd like to go a little bit deeper with it. How do you start dealing with that voice that maybe you're not good enough or you're not cut out to do this, or oh, it was just a pipe dream. You need to stop dreaming and settle for what everyone else is doing, which I know are some of the common kind of inner critic voices that we have. What are some ways to be able to deal with those things?
Great question. So there's a couple of things. One is group work. If you're one of the big things I find with the leaders I work with is isolation. You feel you've got no one to talk to, you get home, you want to speak to your wife or husband, but they don't really understand what you're going through. So there's no one to share.
Mm.
when we have a group to share in, whether it's a mastermind group or the group coaching that I do, is you can talk to people, go, oh, this is coming up, and they go, yeah, I know that one. So you're not alone anymore. That's the first thing. And then the other thing is, what one of the things I do is it comes from the work of Nate Zinser, who's a psychologist, clinical psychologist, and this idea of finding the times you were good enough. So a core belief a lot of leaders have is I'm not good enough, and that comes across as imposter syndrome. But actually, if we flip that around and we go, no, I am good enough, and then you give yourself data. Okay, what are 5 points, 5 times when I was good enough? Oh, yeah, I set the business up and it made £1 million. Great, that's one thing. Two, relationship. I've been married 20 years. That's another time I've been good enough. Oh, the children, they're great. So you can then start to challenge that inner critic, which is saying, oh, you're no good. And you flood yourself with positive feelings of, oh, actually, and this is kind of drawn upon the work of David Goggins, who's a former Navy SEAL,
Mm.
about mental toughness. It's like he calls it the cookie jar. Things get difficult. Pull a time out of your life where you've really excelled, where you've done something which is everyone else has said is impossible.
Mm. I love that. So reflect back to those areas in your life that you did succeed in, or areas that you were very competent in, and relate back that you were successful in these areas. You've been able to achieve this, this, and this, and realize that you can still keep going. You can keep going with this. Those other areas are just proof you are capable, and you don't have to doubt yourself or have that imposter syndrome. Am I hearing you correctly when you say that?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And as you speak, I mean, another layer to this is a daily practice. Is it Phil Stutz in his book, The Tools? It writes about this idea of emotional stamina. The worse you feel, business is going terrible, the more committed you are to your protocol. And that means exercising, getting to bed early, eating well, spending time with family. It's like taking care of yourself. Whereas often when we feel terrible, we go, oh, I don't have time to exercise. I don't, I'm working with a founder at the moment whose exercise had dropped off and we started working together. I said, you need to get back in the gym. It's transformed how he is. He has energy again. It's like
Hmm.
the worse we feel, the more we're committed to doing our protocols.
Yeah, that's actually really powerful. Can you talk about that a little bit deeper then, Pierce? Because you're absolutely right. And I've seen this happen in my life, and I've seen it with loads of people that I work with as well, that when you do start going through those challenging times, you tend to fall off of those
Mm,
daily core principles or foundational pillars that keep you stable, because you feel like life or business is in chaos. And then what we oddly do is get rid of the foundational pillars that kind of keep us centered. So
mm.
talk a little bit more about that. I find it quite fascinating.
Yeah, so I'll give you an example, Jason. So in the 9th of February this year, I was releasing a documentary called Boarding on Insanity about boarding school and our leaders. It got Gabor Mate, who's considered one of the leading experts in trauma. And on that day, a couple of weeks to our London premiere, my wife died.
Whoa.
So this is 6 months, 7 months ago today. And I thought I was at 10 out of 10 in intensity on that Sunday. I was like, oh my God, it's stressful. We've got PR, all of this stuff. My wife dies. And I'm like, oh my God, the Monday I just fell apart. And then I woke on Tuesday morning and I heard Phil Stutz's voice in my head. The worse you feel, the more committed you are to your protocol. So I'm like, okay, I've never felt as bad as this. So I got up and I did my exercise. I went for my run, went for a walk, I did my yoga. It was difficult and I wasn't sleeping for the first month, you
Yeah.
know. But gradually it got easier. It got easier. And and so that's really the example is that, we're all going to go through difficult times, but it's almost like if you build that muscle um, capability to show up no matter what is going on, when things do get difficult, it will carry you through. And
Mm,
after a month, I started to sleep again. After a couple of months, I started to feel a bit lighter. And that was thanks to not only my friends and the support and my family, but
yeah.
also having that protocol that, right, I need to eat really well, really cleanly now. I can't just go back to crisps and kind of
Mm,
fast food, which I could have done. And I have a colleague who released a documentary, and he said after it was released, he just spent 6 months on the sofa drinking vodka.
wow. Yeah. That's something else. That's I don't really know what to say to that. Like it's when you've gone through something. I wasn't expecting you to say that, by the way. I was like, wow, okay, that's a one of the hardest things to have happen where someone extremely close, you lose them in your life and you've got everything going on. How do you carry on? How do you maintain? How do you keep going? And I love that you've just said it's the protocol is the words you use, which I think is really powerful. That protocol, that life protocol, just every day. And yes, it seems tough, and yes, it's okay to have those sleepless nights, as you said, but because of that protocol, it helped you along the way. And I would assume it helped you get to where you are now way faster than if you hadn't have done those things.
100%, 100%. After 3 months, I felt a lot better, and I was crying every day at the time.
Yeah.
But I went back to doing my coaching work on the Tuesday. So
Mm,
I Michelle died on the Sunday, but I went back because my work is to teach leaders about emotional intelligence. That's where leadership's moving. It's moving from command and control to emotional intelligence.
mm,
And how can I model it to them? How can I teach them about it if I don't model it? And so
yeah.
some of the time I was in tears. But it's like, this is me and I'm okay with it. And I can still do a wonderful coaching session with you.
Yeah.
And for them
Yeah.
afterwards, they messaged me saying that's some of the most powerful coaching I've ever experienced.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's really so impactful, isn't it? Like just being able to keep your ground through those times and be able to work through those and yeah, absolutely powerful. One of the questions that I like to ask, which you've pretty much answered, is like, what's one of the biggest challenges you've ever gone through in business, and what's the lessons you've learned? And you've already answered that. It's just such an incredible journey to see that, and I think so much to learn. And I think comparing it as well to different things in life, because oftentimes when we're going through a challenge, it feels like the worst thing that we
Exactly.
can go through. When in reality, the experience you've just mentioned seems to be way up there. That or loss of a child or something like. I don't really know much worse situations. And so I think as well, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this very quickly with the time we have left. How do we balance those things when we feel like it's the worst thing that's happening, but really we need to put that in perspective to things? Any tips around that?
Yeah, thank you. So I think I can't remember who taught me this, but it's this idea of when you think you're at a 10, you're actually at a 4. So I thought I was a 10 with the film. Absolutely, so stressed, couldn't sleep. Then my wife dies. Oh no, really must be at a 10 now. And
Yeah, yeah.
then a week later, I got a really bad illness. I got a skin parasite,
Wow.
which basically, and I was like, oh, I thought I was a 10. Now I got this. It's like, you're joking, aren't you? And and so it's almost like we think we're at that point. So it's just to tell yourself, that's what I've done over the last 6 months. Oh no,
Mhm.
I'm really at a 1, or I'm at a 2, or maybe I'm at a 4 now, but I'm not at a
Mhm.
10 because we always get to that point. And it's just having that space. It's the reframe. Once those cortisol chemicals are released and you kind of relax, you move from fight, flight to rest, digest, you get spaciousness. And as
Mm.
leaders, we need to find that solitude, that space just to calm down, and then we can see the big picture again.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing. Well, Pierce, with everything that you are doing in your business, what are your goals over the next couple of years? What do you want to achieve with that?
Great. Yeah. So I've got compassionate leaders, so it's just to keep on with that. So releasing a 12-week course, group coaching, where I lead people through the last 30 years of my own coaching experience, but also transformation. So it's through 12 modules. So that rolls out every 3, 4 months or so. And I'll keep on with my one-to-one work and keep showing the documentary. We had a sold-out screening yesterday down in Stroud, Gloucestershire, and
Nice.
we've had 3 sold-out screenings: London, Stroud, West Yorkshire. So yeah, we'll just keep doing that. To be honest, we've got a few more Edinburgh, and yeah, just getting the message out about the impact that trauma might have on leadership.
Yeah. Wow, that's brilliant and really impactful as well. Well, if people want to find you, where's the best place for them to go to do so?
So it's either my website, piers-cross.com, or compassionateleadersglobal.com.
Amazing, amazing. Well, Pierce, thank you so much for being on the show and just sharing everything and just being very open and vulnerable with what you've communicated. It's absolutely just brilliant to hear when people are that open and vulnerable to have that impact. So thank you. So, and as a reminder for everyone as well, this show is sponsored by the LinkedIn Reverse Podcast Method, the new way to close deals that doesn't rely on any of the old traditional methods that everyone hates. To find out more, direct message me on LinkedIn to have a chat. That's Jason A. Osborne, and that will be in the show notes below as well.